Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day number 6 of the spring edition of the Ottawa International Writers Festival. It's my great pleasure as Artistic Director of the Writers Festival to welcome you here this evening to Christchurch Cathedral. We are, of course, standing on unceded Algonquin territory, which needs to be acknowledged. We've got 3 remarkable women sharing their stories with us this evening. The 2 books that you're going to get a taste of are truly phenomenal. And my job here is simply to introduce our host, but I don't think Lucy needs much of an introduction, but Lucy van Oldenbarneveld is, of course, one of the main reasons to turn on CBC television. She's phenomenal. She is a great friend of the festival. She is strength personified, and we're just thrilled that she could be here to share the stage, to share these just beautiful books. And so I don't want to take too much of your time, but I will say that Jim from Perfect Books, just outside the door, is happy to sell you copies of these remarkable books. You're going to want them both. You're going to want multiple copies of both. He will be selling them during the event, and so there's going to be a moment when you realize you need it. Just go get it and come back, because my guess is they're going to go at the end of the night. When you buy a book from a real bookseller, you are not only supporting local jobs, local industry, you're supporting publishers. Most importantly, you're supporting the amazing writers whose work is within those pages. And as an added bonus, when you buy a book here at the Writers Festival, Jim makes a donation to our free children's literacy program. So thanks to your generosity and your support of great writing, roughly 4,000 kids a year get to work in our community, get to spend hands-on time with an author. The amazing Stuart Ross was at my son's school today, and I know they were thrilled. And this is something that we as a community need to do, encourage the next generation to develop their literacy skills and get a real early start on self-expression. Again, thank you so much for being here. At the end of the night, they're going to be signing books just down the hall, because we will have to clear the room because our 8:30 show is also sold out. So you're going to all have to get out and go around the corner to get your book signed. Let's give a warm welcome to the one and only Lucy van Oldenbarneveld.
Oh, nice to see you all. It's been a while since I've been out of the house, so great to see you. You know, when Sean asked me to host tonight, I right away said yes, and then I immediately regretted it. The books arrived, and then they just sat there for a week or two. You know, when they arrived, I was in the thick of my radiation treatments. I just finished them last week. And I have to say, and I'm coming to realize this, I have a bit of an ambivalent relationship to cancer conversations. They have to be just right. You feel pretty vulnerable, and it's just so personal that you want to be safe in the conversation. And those who've gone through this maybe know what I'm talking about. You wonder, will tonight trigger something scary? Will I meet one of those people who, in an attempt to kind of make a connection, say something like, oh, you know, my neighbor's florist had a friend who had cancer and she died, I think the next day. Or my colleague's aunt had cancer, you know, and it came back. So bad, not good at all. Or you sometimes get the tucked under lip, the furrowed brow, and the shake of the head with a, how are you? So there are a number of things to be on the lookout for that can set you off in a bit of a spiral of despair. But one thing I've learned this year is sometimes you just got to force yourself to be brave and present and willing to just get on with it. Living while you're alive. I have a sinking feeling that was a Bon Jovi lyric. You're going to cut me some slack, okay? Now, the other thing is, though, and the other reason that I'm here is that cancer people are a tribe. And we listen closely to each other. We look for clues, and encouragements, tips, and truths. So you listen extra loudly to people who've been on this journey for help, for clues, for sustenance. But the other thing I've learned is that the main thing about talking to women who've been through cancer is that I am always a witness to amazing courage. As you'll hear tonight from these two women, humbling bravery, optimism, and hope, a lot of it. And I'm privileged to be talking to these two tonight. Teva and Biff are authors, they're artists, they're creative trailblazers, and I am so happy to be here to talk to them and talk to you. So let's get started. The first time I introduced Biff Naked to a crowd was in 2011 at Westfest, where I got to watch from the sidelines. Nods, you were there? Yes, okay, lots of Biff fans here tonight. I got to watch from the sidelines as she held that crowd captive with her music and her stage presence. Biff has performed on bills with Sheryl Crow, Chrissy Hynde, and The Cult. She's also an actor, appearing in films and in theater, and even a reality show called Biff Naked Bride, which I remember watching at the time, and I loved it. Biff, Beth Torbert, was born in New Delhi to teenage Canadian parents attending private school, and she was adopted by American missionaries. A very fascinating beginning. In 2008, Biff was diagnosed with breast cancer. On her first day of chemo, she decided then and there that she would never shut her mouth. Not for a second, she says, not ever, in order to get through cancer and for everyone else to get through theirs. Breast cancer is just a chapter in her very amazing memoir, I, Bifficus, and it takes us on quite a ride through a very unconventional life. Please welcome Biff Naked.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Hi. I'm sweating right now. I'm not going to whine that it's a hot flash. It's probably actually nerves. I'm very excited. Thank you for your wonderful introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here. I love Ottawa. I haven't been here in a couple of years. I miss it very much, especially now that everything's so different. You know what I'm talking about. Very exciting place to live, I'm sure. In vogue and everything. Well, we're just over on the West Coast. Not a big French community or a political community there unless you're into a little marijuana, I guess. Anyway, I have to make jokes because I get nervous, and that's what I've always done. And in my book, it is a chapter of my life. I always say, people say life is short. I believe life is long. It's really long. It's unbearably long, and it's long, which is great. I did write a chapter in my book that does touch upon my exciting adventure with breast cancer, and it's called, I had to get glasses. I can't even believe this. These are new. So I've never actually worn them before. Gosh, I want to die. Okay. I can't see a thing without them. Nice. Okay, not a word. Okay, okay. My chapter is called The Year of the Tit. And I thought it was appropriate. I almost got a tattoo that was actually a bird. There's a bird called the great tit. And I do recommend it highly to survivors. Instead of the ribbon, if you want something different, get a tit, a bird, on your boob or whatever. I'm going to read a little bit about my story. And everyone knows, they just tell me to knock it off because I talk too much. And this is what happened was I married a young man. My second husband. Anyway, and right after I got home from my honeymoon, it was not a great experience, my honeymoon, but that's a whole other chapter. And this is us at home. With the Mexican honeymoon behind us, I was grateful to be reunited with my dogs. And I was kept sane and sound by any of my dear friends. I resumed my work plans and was happy not to be traveling before Christmas. I was making Christmas cards to send to our wedding guests, of course, continuing with my daily workout. I was still anorexic, by the way. Continuing with my daily workout and even considering discussing again with the good doctor, she's quite evil, on how to get pregnant. I threw myself into my routines and forgot about my fears for a couple of weeks, determined to be committed to this man. Then, one night, just after I had crawled into bed, I found what felt like a chickpea in my left breast, on my upper left side, not even in my tit. I had never done a self-exam because my breasts were always a bit lumpy. I mean, who could tell what a lump was supposed to feel like? There's nothing but lumps. But this one was different. It was a lump, and I knew it the minute I touched it. I had never been so certain of anything in my life. It was a tumor. The noise of the television drowned out my gasp. Thank God. I didn't want to let him know. I made an appointment the next morning to see my doctor and went straight there. My GP thought that the likelihood of the lump being cancerous was slim. I was young, I was athletic, I was vegan, for God's sake. There just was not much chance, he said. I understood what he was saying, and I even agreed with him, nodding, laughing, but I still knew it was tit cancer. I simply accepted it and kept it to myself until the doctors are sure. You can't really announce it to your family or friends. It's like telling people too early that you're pregnant. It's better to wait and make sure, so I sucked it up. It was the strangest thing. I had no real fear about it. You know, I didn't really care either way. I could take it or leave it. I was a bit depressed for my isolating and lonely job of being biff naked, and actually, now that I was married to him, I kind of hoped it would kill me. Going for a mammography was just a formality. I was not anxious about the mammogram. I knew what the results would be after all. 10 days later, I was back at the same medical building that I had frequented only 2 months before when I was trying to get pregnant. What a joke. The mammogram machine sounded like a winning slot machine in Reno, ringing and dinging. To me, it seemed like the whole thing lit up. Bells and whistles blowing, coins coming out of the slot. It was like a Ren and Stimpy cartoon, and I was simply watching it. There I was in my thin blue gown tied at the back, immobilized by this machine, the technician clucking like a hen. Miss Beth, just hang on. We're going to do another picture. Just step back, dear. We're going to get you in there again. I stepped back, and my throbbing red boob felt like a wounded mouse sprung from a trap. The technician motioned me back up to the machine and positioned my breast again. As the plates flattened my breast, she mashed and kneaded it, stuffing it between the plates. Then she manually tightened them further and further. You okay? I was holding my breath. Yep, you bet. I smiled at her, being as cooperative as possible. I mean, my breast was flat and it hurt a great deal, but I sucked it up. I knew the doctors needed an accurate image, though I knew what they would see. The technician ducked back behind the shield, and the beeps and breath-holding requests commenced. In between the shots, I couldn't help but yawn. I just needed to get this appointment over with and get back to my car, parked at a street meter. Instead, I remained in mammography the rest of the afternoon, while the technician checked and rechecked each side of my left breast and each film. The radiologists, one by one, poked their heads into the room to take a peek at me. Less than 10% of patients screened have a suspicion of cancer, and certainly not many in their 30s, so they were being looky-loos. Plus, whether I liked it or not, it was Biff Naked who was lighting up the bells and whistles of the mammography machine. It probably really broke up the week for everyone. Finally, the exam was finished. You're going to have to wait in your gown, the technician said. There's been an opening for ultrasound across the hall. The doctor wanted to see me right away and sneak me in between a couple of other patients. The ball of the ultrasound probe rolled back and forth, up and down, then over and over, back and forth, pressing harder each time. The technician paused and concentrated on one spot. I didn't need to look. I knew it was the tumor. Beth, I think we need a biopsy. I know, I answered, almost bored. let's get you dressed and get it booked for this coming week. I told her I was off to Winnipeg for a few days and asked if we could do it when I got back. I got dressed, quickly going up my cardigan buttons and tying my shoes, but to no avail. My car had been towed while I was in the mammography clinic. What a day. Did you want me to step away from the... Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We will hear more from Biff in our conversation. She's a bit shy and reserved, so we're going to see if we can draw her out of her shell a little bit in our conversation. Thank you very much for that unique approach to Diagnosis Day. I have never heard one quite like that. So we'll talk more about what those days are like when you get diagnosed. In 2013, Teva Harrison was working at her dream job, head of marketing for the Nature Conservancy of Canada. She was 37, in a great marriage, looking forward to starting a family. Then she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, stage 4 breast cancer that had metastasized. Since then, she's grieved, mourned, and then got busy pursuing a beautiful life, one that she fills with everyday acts of hope, things like recycling, buckling up in taxis, and taking care of her skin. Reading her book was tough. It was powerful. Joseph Boyden said, "It is unflinching, heartbreaking, profound, and it's crushing." So how do you face an incurable disease in the prime of life? Well, Teva Harrison is doing it with grace, humor, and punch-to-the-gut honesty. With more from her graphic novel, In Between Days, here is an amazing woman, Teva Harrison.
Hello. I need to figure out, I have slides, so my book is half comics and half essays. It developed out of comics first, so it started with the comics and then the essays came after. So I didn't feel like it would quite be proper just to read. I thought I should also do a little bit of showing, but I've not used this before, so let's see. The book itself, it is not chronological. It doesn't tell the story from beginning to end because there is no ending yet, and I hope to prolong that as long as I possibly can. So in designing the way to tell a story within this book, I broke it up into 3 parts, and within each part there are 3 chapters. The first part deals with diagnosis, treatment, and side effects. The second part, and they're symbolizing, family, marriage, and society. And the third part is hopes and dreams and fears. And I'm just going to read a few comics and essays from scattered among those. Before I started drawing about cancer, when I was already very, very sick, I started drawing, and it was a way to lift myself up from the darkness of my diagnosis. And first it was really just pretty things like drawings of photographs I'd taken of Arctic flowers when I was in the north a few months prior to my diagnosis. And then it started to be childhood memories. So before I started drawing about cancer, I drew this series of drawings about moments that defined me in my youth. And this was one of those drawings. I'm just going to flip to the essay. In case you can't read it, it says, "Once, in school, we grew crystal gardens in tin boxes. I was carrying mine home when I found a dead bird. I laid the bird gently on a bed of crystals, dug a hole in the forest floor, and buried it. Sometimes, magic comes in unexpected forms. This is a story of obvious magic. The magic of crystals grown in a left-of-center classroom from salts and food coloring. This is also the story of unexpected magic. The story of a little girl finding a dead songbird on the side of the road, of marveling in the soft roughness of its skin, the smooth symmetry of its feathers, the dull glass of its inert eyes. This is a story of vulnerability and dignity in death. I must have been 9 or 10 years old. I was proud of the cigar box of crystals I'd grown in school, and I was carrying it home to show my mom. I had about half a mile to walk. I'd been dropped off where my rural road met a slightly larger rural road. I took my time, walking not on the asphalt, but along the flood ditch. It had been a couple weeks since I'd walked this ditch, and I needed to see if anything interesting had fallen out of a car lately. One time, I found a metal medallion, and I felt like Indiana Jones. Choke cherries grew there. I liked to taste their bitter fruit. And farther along, blackberries crowded the ditch. For a split spring second, tiny wild strawberries appeared, but it wasn't the season to pick berries. It was only because I was surveying my tiny kingdom so meticulously that I found the dead bird lying on its back. I sat down and held the tiny body closely. I felt its still strong beak and the looseness of its talons in death. It weighed nothing at all. I wanted to protect it. So I did what I could. It's what we all do, stumbling through each day as best we can, trying to live up to our own ideals of kindness and caring, to protect the bird's dignity in death, to keep it safe from marauding animals. I laid its body gently in the cigar box. I used branches to dig in the rich, peaty ground, and when I could dig no more, I placed the bird in its tin coffin. I refilled the hole with earth and pine needles, and then I walked home from school, swinging my now empty arms, still on time. Now I'm going to shift a little into cancer, which is maybe appropriate. This, again, in case you can't read it, this comic is called Can't Be Trusted. This disease is so slippery. One day you're stable, you and your healthcare team are full of hope. You get lulled by the casual optimism of nurses. But you can't count on that. I mean, the very next month, on my very next scan, we found new spots. Hope is a dangerous thing. It's absolutely crucial all the time, or I couldn't go on. I'm a naturally optimistic person, and I'm inclined to hope for the moon. But I can't put too much hope in any one thing, especially now. In one moment, everything can change. The reality of advanced cancer is that if we manage to stabilize it, it's only stable for an indeterminate while. My disease is highly adaptive, constantly trying to figure out how to get around whatever obstacle my doctors and I put in front of it. It's only ever a matter of time before it finds its way around the barricades and begins to grow again or set up shop somewhere new. And when it does, we change the treatment, hoping to stall it in its tracks again. The order of treatments is like this. First, the most easily tolerated drugs. Then each subsequent treatment comes with new, more difficult side effects. In the beginning, in addition to the primary tumor in my left breast, I had metastases in 3 bones, 2 lymph nodes. My first line of treatment lasted about 11 months. By 10 months, I was starting to feel like I was going to be okay. I started to dream bigger, to think about going back to work, to hope that I might be one of those lucky women who manages to live a very, very long time with this disease, that I might even live long enough for scientists to find out how to stop my cancer in a more meaningful way. While giving me my bone-strengthening injection, a nurse even described my cancer as less aggressive. I was over the moon, which made the fall that much worse when I found out the next month that my cancer had spread to a shiny new organ, my liver. That's why I need to be careful. Hope is delicious, heady stuff, but reality has a way of upsetting the apple cart. I have to find a way to balance the hope I need to get up every day with the pragmatism I need to deal with bad news. This next one is related to something that Lucy alluded to, just talking to people. Trying on small talk. And what do? Oh, I'm on sabbatical. Must be nice. Let's try that again. I'm on leave from work. Stress leave? Something like that. Or maybe, oh, I draw mostly. You're so brave to take that leap to do that full time. You have no idea. How about one more try? So what do? I have cancer. Mostly I do that. Small talk is easy when you have a job. Somebody asks what you do, you already have an elevator pitch on the ready. Or if you have kids, you can just go on about their latest cute discovery. I can see why. Kids keep your eyes wide to the world. Small talk is a minefield when all you have on offer is cancer. It's touched everybody, but most people don't know how to talk about it, or don't want to. Except for a few people. There's a type of person desperate to talk about cancer. People who want to process the loss of a loved one. And let's get real. The last thing this cancer patient wants to talk about is dead cancer patients. Forgive me, I got my sticky notes all confused. Mosquitoes don't seem to like me much anymore, but they love David. Maybe it's all the pills I take. Maybe they can smell the cancer in my blood. Do I smell rotten? Would a mosquito bite a zombie? I don't feel like The Walking Dead. Maybe now I'm GMO food to them and they just want to eat organic. This comic, I'm just going to make an aside about. You see, I'm trying to meditate and I'm constantly ruminating. It's this pull of trying not to think about it, and yet it's always present. So we have to figure out our way. But I'm going to read the essay that goes with this comic. Blood, the stuff of life, flowing through my body, filtering out spent cells and delivering essential nourishment to my extremities. Blood, coursing through my veins, cancer cells tumbling along, looking for purchase, a place to latch on and start another metastasis. And that same blood carries the drugs that are keeping my cancer stable, a heady cocktail of life and death writ small. Every month, my blood is drawn, analyzed. My participation in this current clinical trial hinges on the results. And to the mosquito, that connoisseur of blood, how do I smell? How do I taste? Am I exotic or am I rotten? Do I make its wee stomach turn? Is there a manufactured smell about me, something less than human or maybe more? What does the mosquito know about my health that I don't? I wish I could draw happily ever after into being. I wouldn't draw a castle or a knight in shining armor. I'm no princess. My happily ever after is simple. I don't understand your cancer, it's gone. And then I get to grow old with my love, my family. And one day, I just go to sleep peacefully and I don't wake up. Why should I believe that I deserve more than one happily ever after? When I met David, wasn't that enough happiness for one little life? Why am I so selfish? Makes me think I'm so special. My dreams used to extend as far as the eye could see. Sometimes I still get a glimpse of their unbounded glory out of the corner of my eye. It's a shadow of the manifest destiny I was raised to expect in my offbeat childhood at the end of the Oregon Trail. I'm so humbled by cancer. It's knocked me down a peg or so. I read about clinical trials and possible advances, and I try not to let myself hope too hard. The fall is too bruising from that height, and my hopes are clumsy and ungainly. But I can't help it. Catch myself hoping with every fiber of my being that there will be an end to this nightmare. Even at my best moments, I'm living inside a horror show I couldn't have conceived on my own. I mean, the very depth of this dread, I could drown in it. And like a spider, shaking in fear on her pretty web, every time a bird flies too close. I'm always afraid. Yet somehow, some days, I forget that I'm not supposed to let the hope out, and it swells to an absolutely inappropriate size. I'm dwarfed by it. My hopes are simple. They're all tied up in living without fear, getting to release the coiled-up snake of fire in my stomach that burns and writhes and snaps. And when I let my guard down, and the fear or the joy comes tumbling out, those feelings are enormous after being pent up for so long. Each is an entity all its own. It's as if I've formed a golem to protect me, but it's well out of my control. I have no way of predicting what will happen next. I have one more very short one. I mean, what do I have to lose? So, here I am, in treatment for the rest of my life. Really, what shouldn't I do? What do I actually have to lose? This disease will kill me eventually, but it could be years and years and years. I have to count on that. And in the meantime, whatever that means, I really have nothing to lose. So I'm going to say yes even more. Live like a tornado when I can. I'm going to suck the marrow out of life and see what I've been missing. Oh, that way.
Come on up. Come on up. Teva Harrison, everybody.
Glasses.
Want to sit in the middle
Thank
there?
you. I'm glad I didn't wear my high heels. I would have fallen 10 times.
I actually brought high heels in case you were wearing them because I thought I might be shy. I don't want to be short.
So, I think we'll have a conversation for a little while, and then we'll open the floor to some of your questions, because I'm sure you have a lot after hearing from these two. Teva, we heard a bit from Biff about her diagnosis day. Can you tell us about yours? What was that day like?
I'd like to divide the day into two parts because I found a lump. I went to my doctor. I had an ultrasound. I went to the hospital pretty quickly. I had a mammogram. They took me straight across the hall for a biopsy. I already knew by then. I knew when the ultrasound technician's voice changed. She was really jokey, and then she became really quiet suddenly. She was scanning away. So I had the biopsy. I had to wait a few days, which was awful. And I went in, and it was December as well, and the staff was really bare bones. And so there wasn't actually an oncologist there to give me the news. It was a surgeon. And he told me that I had stage 3 breast cancer it was locally advanced, and that I would have chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, and by this time next year, you'll be on the other side of this. And he drew me a timeline, and he gave me that timeline. I still have it. And then he sent me for a bone scan. And then when I went in for the results from that bone scan, I was told, for the first time, he said, this will be your worst day. And then when I went in for the result from the bone scan, I was told, so we're no longer looking for a cure. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And they told me I was stage 4 and incurable, and, well, we can manage it. And that was by far the worst day.
And it just happened like that, within it sounds like 2 weeks or something like that, where you went from stage 3 to it having spread to your bones.
Well, it was already there. They just hadn't sent me for the bone scan,
Right.
yeah.
And, a day like that sends you running for cover, I would imagine. So in those immediate moments, and days and months after, weeks, how did you process it? How did you make sense of it all?
Still working on it.
Yeah.
Immediately, at first I didn't want to talk to anybody. At first, we didn't even tell our family right away. At first, we thought, well, it's December. I don't want to ruin everyone's holidays. Maybe we'll wait till January to tell family, and then, of course, we told them. But our first reaction was, well, we better live hard this month because the next year is going to be awful. So we went out, my husband and I went out to dinner, and we were drinking our best bottles of wine, and then it just, like, I think I was trying to keep moving so that it didn't hit me. And in January, February, we went for a holiday, and on that holiday, I just lost it. I was crying every day. I was like, we were in sunshine, it was in Mexico, we had friends there, and I was waking up crying every single day, and then I'd pull myself together to hang out with our friends. And when I went back to work, I quit. Like, I had to go on leave. Because I had been trying to still go into my office and run my team, because I really loved that job,
And Biff, how about you? Like, I mean, making sense of it takes time. It's been 7 or 8 years for you now. Like, or finding a place, maybe making sense of it is not possible, but finding a place for it so that you can move around in your life every day. What's that been like for you? Describe that.
Oh, well, for me, I didn't have that experience at all. I was absolutely ecstatic to be diagnosed with breast cancer. Ecstatic. Finally had a reason not to go on tour. Finally had a reason. I was like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Plus, it was an isolating job. So when I got into my treatment, I suddenly, as a very bald, yellow, jaundiced patient, like every other patient I was with, I suddenly had a sisterhood. I suddenly had all these friends. I mean, it was a really isolating job. And so what I discovered was, A, I should have been a hospital administrator. Like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And I want to talk to the health team that gave you your diagnosis. And I'm like, where's the sensitivity training? I would throttle those people. But, I discovered I really loved everything about it. And I loved talking about it. I loved the science of it. And I loved talking to women about it. I went into medical translation for some patients because it's really a deer in the headlights moment. Every one of us internalizes it in some way, or our spouse does, or our family does. And it's just fascinating. It still fascinates me.
But I'm a bit surprised at this reaction. I mean, it sounds like everyone should try. So, I mean, why? Where was the fear? Where was the?
I never had any. I never did, and I don't know if it's a highly honed coping technique that I had from the life I'd led up until that point.
Could that be it? Do you think that's what it is?
Possible. I think it's possible, but I also think that things like cancer, car accidents, health crises that people go through in their lives really catapult you into being extremely focused. And you are gonna be focused, nose to the grindstone, and you suddenly you develop this resiliency that you may not have known you were capable of, and it becomes empowering, and you become interested in your own survival techniques, and you become very good at it. It's interesting.
When I was first diagnosed, somebody said to me in the first week of my diagnosis, I couldn't believe it at the time, and she said, this is going to be a wonderful opportunity for you. And
the gift. It's a gift. That's right.
I thought she was nuts, and I still think maybe she's a little nuts. Right. But you sound a little nuts sometimes.
But I always had this attitude, regardless. I was diagnosed with a pain form in O'Valley probably 3 years or 4 years earlier to that. I kept having strokes. And the doctors were like, well, you did hard drugs when you were young, so that's why. It's your fault. And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's a TIA. I read it in my dad's medical textbook. I don't know. And they're like, no, you probably have MS. And so then I went through MS checking, because if you know anything about MS, it's impossible to diagnose because it's a myelin sheath. Anyway. So I had kind of had to deal with my mortality fears a number of times up until that point.
Right.
So again, I think for me, I'm going to be always the one that's going to crack a joke. no matter what, cut my arm off, and I'm going to be like, look at the ha ha ha, look at, you know. That's probably what I would do. And I just think that that's how I rolled. And I honestly can say, and my mother knows it's the truth. I wish that I could do cancer for everybody. I wish I could do it instead of them. I wish they could do transfer it to me, because I think that I would just rather do that. Because people don't like making jokes a lot of the time. And it's very, very hard on families. Yes. And it's very hard on people. And I kind of feel like, you know, I have an extra top hat and cane always at the ready.
And you describe that really in your book, in your first day of chemo, where you say you're not going to shut your mouth at all. You're going to do this for everybody.
Chemo rooms are extremely interesting places. They're extremely interesting. And people are always in for something different. Everyone has a story. Everybody has a story. It's amazing. It really is. And that's not a gift. That's the same as you don't have cancer and you're just on the bus. You know, that's just life. People all have stories. Everyone's interesting.
Teva, I was interested in your book as well, where you said you're the only stage 4 cancer patient who is an atheist.
I have since met some others.
You've met some others. So tell me how that informs what you're going through and how you manage without that greater belief, I guess, that can help a lot of people get through.
Yeah, you know, I am a little bit jealous. And it's interesting because I was raised in a family where we are Jewish, but we've been secular for a number of generations, and but it's still a tradition of questioning. So even, you know, whether you learn it in shul or learn it at home, you're taught to think about things and like, oh, well, is that what do you know about that? I don't know about that. So I look at the idea of a continuance of self, and I can't find any convincing proof that there's. And I know faith does not require proof, but I do not have the faith to get beyond the need for proof. It's hard because I love living. I'm completely enthralled by the magic of this world. Like, science is magic to me, and nature is magic to me, and other people are magic to me, and I do feel like there's something beyond the tangible, but I can't find anything that says I will continue, that I can believe. And it's one of the things I struggle with the most because I'm afraid. I'm afraid to cease to exist. Yeah, I like it here.
We like you here,
and
that is you here.
That is a part of cancer for everyone. It's some have a better sense of the timing, perhaps, but really, what a cancer diagnosis means is you no longer know what is happening, what is going to happen tomorrow or the next day. I mean, none of us do. But this seems to put a timeline on things, and I think that's what scares people so deeply. So,
I was just going to say, a lot of people, as much as it's, you know, they all say, well, anyone could get hit by a bus, but like, I know what color the bus is. I can see it coming down the road at me. You know,
that's right.
You know, but I think one of the things through reading and learning is that. And what I'm always interested in is how people manage the anxiety and the depression and the grief that comes along with a cancer diagnosis, and whether it's, I mean, I'm a cliche magnet now. I grab on to the one day at a time and carpe diem and what, you know, take a breath and all of that kind of stuff. But I do find that soothing in many ways. What tips and encouragements do you have? What are some things that get you out of those dark holes? Maybe start with you.
For me, I've looked. I think this speaks to what you were saying, Biff, about how cancer clarifies you. I have really focused on spending the time I have when I'm feeling really well, because I don't know from one day to the next what will be a great day and what will be an okay day and what will be a bad day. When I feel really well, I spend the time doing the things that give me the most joy, period. And for me, a big part of that is drawing, a big part of that is spending a huge amount of time with my friends and family. I'm traveling as much as I can. It's a little bit hard on me, but it's worth it. And it's having those experiences, because if I don't, there's this darkness available that I could just slip into. It's very easy to be alone when you're sick. It's the easiest thing. People don't give you a hard time if you cancel plans. People don't pressure you. They don't push.
So that's the antidote, the experiences, the relationships. How about you, Beth? What?
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have all these thoughts, and I'm like, I can't say that. I can't, because a dear friend of mine is from Rhode Island, and they talk different than I do. They say, park the car. More accurately, they say, park the fucking car. But anyway, so she makes me laugh, and she's very funny, and she lost her sister, and you know, her mantra with getting through that, and with many things in life, was fuck them in the neck. What does that even mean? But you know what? It made me laugh. And I said, you know what? You're right. You're right. And when we're in polite company, like now, and because I'll only tell you the real saying once, and so now when I say it, you'll know what I mean, so all you have to say is in the neck. That's all you ever have to say. And you know what? It really does, because it always makes me laugh. No matter what's happening, you know, your surgical port could blow apart. I have catheter tubing still in here because my vascular surgeon was an artist. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not liable. But anyway, so I still have catheter tubing. And I go in the neck. You know what? It's basically like, Nishkafela, what are you going to do? There's nothing you can do. You're driving the car. You are driving the car how you think and how you feel. Every day you're driving the car. So, you know, you're either going to make a funny and try as hard as you can to just relax, or you're going to get upset. I don't like being upset. And my cancer experience was a real testament to how isolated I was in my life. If cancer was like, you know,
You were isolated.
I was,
Yeah,
because
yes.
suddenly I had a place that I had to go every day.
Yes.
And I could get out of doing things. Yeah, you obviously didn't have my manager. Still made me make a record during chemo, but I digress. But thank God he did. Thank God he did, because I love to work. And part of the things that make me joyful are making jokes, swearing, and making records.
Amen. Amen.
Sorry.
But on that note, and I find this interesting, that talk to me a bit about the power of positive thinking. I know, Teva, this is big for you, and I think it is big for it seems to be the advice. Stay positive, stay on the up and up, but when is that important, and when is it a bit of a tyranny? And when are those days where I don't care if it's sunny, I don't care about puppies, I don't care about hot tea on a cold day, I'm sad and I'm pissed off. And so when do you allow yourself that, and when do you say, no, it's my job to get back on the positive bandwagon?
Oh, no, I never say it's my job to get on the positive bandwagon.
Okay.
It helps me to do things that make me happy. That's different than saying, oh, you have to be happy. I actually allow myself to be sad in a way I didn't before I got sick. If I have a day where I'm just too sad, I do say fuck it, and I stay in bed. Like, that's it. If it's what I have to do, it's what I have to do. And I don't berate myself for that anymore. It used to be that I was much harder on myself about showing up or participating. There were a lot more things that weren't really command performances, weren't that important, but I felt obligated. I don't do those things anymore. It's more about isolating things that give me joy than demanding joy from myself.
Okay. I understand the distinction. Biff, how about you? How do you approach?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that I could possibly have experienced cancer like some of my other patient friends that I was with in the room, because I always had to be on. You know,
Right.
in a blonde wig, I would still go to the grocery store, I'd still be biff naked. And it would be the same things. How are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And my response always, because it was always my job, is, awesome, man. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Hey, I'm awesome. Hey, awesome. I feel awesome. I'm awesome. And that's all I said. You know, and in the elevator going up to treatment, you know, I look at the other patient, hey, what are you in for? Oh, right on. Awesome. You know? So I don't think, and because I had to do that. I never missed a show in my life except once in 1995 in Regina, Saskatchewan. Not one, because I've had the same managers for 25 years. I was not allowed to miss a show ever in my life. I've had strep throat. I've been sick with this and that and the other thing. No, you do not miss a show. So I don't know how to have a sad day. And I had to learn that. I had to learn that it was okay to be sad. And it was a remarkable learning curve. I failed at it because everyone fails at being sad because they're sad. That's the result. But, you know, I couldn't do it normally. And I think that part of it's overcompensating because I came from these really happy Christian family. Everybody's always happy. My parents were happy people. We were happy children. And I think that the other part of it was just coping technique. It was my job.
Huh. And does it eventually become a self-fulfilling thing where, oh, okay, well, I'm doing something that I love, so I'm actually feeling better, and I'm feeling better, so I can do more things that I love. Like, does this help this approach?
Psychologically, absolutely. Physically, not always. I have physical limitations, and some of them are because I get tired much more easily than I used to. Mm-hmm. Some are side effects from the medication that keeps my cancer stable. Like one of the drugs makes all of my joints hurt, so I can only draw for so many hours a day, no matter how much I want to. So you can fake it till you make it.
Yes.
On one level, but there are some things you just have to live with.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to just touch on creativity as well, because that's the theme of this, and you've just produced these wonderful books. I read a Harvard study about something called post-traumatic growth. And in the study, when someone suffers a psychologically seismic event, there can be a boost in creativity. The more we are shaken, the more we must let go of our former selves. The greater the personal relationships, the greater the connection to something greater, the more creative we become. Have you experienced that, Beth?
I think everybody has, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Anything we do, whatever art it is, whether it's coaching soccer, drawing, writing music, I think that sometimes events, whether they're great events or very traumatic events, are catalysts for that. Just like anything, life-changing accidents, life-changing losses in our lives. They really do make a difference as far as our, creative force goes. It encourages it. It's like Kundalini rising, suddenly.
And Teva, obviously, this book was as a result of a seismic event like this, but how has it been for you? You wanted to get this down into a book form and with a graphic novel that you hadn't done before.
It's interesting because it happened so organically. I fell back on drawing because it's a safe place for me, the act of drawing. But I didn't try to sit down and draw comics. I just had this sense that I needed to record some things. It started with the childhood memories, things that nobody knows but me. Like that moment with the bird, I was alone, and if I don't write it down now, it'll be gone. And to me, some of it is about preserving things that I think are magical and special. That's how it started, was preserving magic. And then it became a tool for processing all these weird experiences. Like I had no context for stereotactic radiation before. I had no understanding of what the actual experience of being a serious patient is. I've never broken a bone before. I'm in this completely new world, and I have to interpret it. And these are, I think, the most readily available tools for me.
Okay. You're also working on another book. This is more the Beyond Cancer book, back to just beautiful things.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bit of it's for sure a reaction. I'm drawing a coloring book called the Joyful Living Coloring Book, because I've just spent all this time drawing about cancer, and I just needed a little bit of an expansive breath, right? So it's fantastic. My publisher's amazing. I'm so grateful that they're going there with me. It's just things that make me smile, from things like Arctic flowers to dinosaurs eating cake while the volcanoes erupt, and
That makes total sense to me. Love it. Can't wait. I love that.
And I love the Arctic flower image, because, and you talk about this because they are just so fragile growing there on the tundra, but they are just strong as hell as well.
Sure.
Tough.
Oh,
Fragile but tough.
Resilience incarnate.
Resilience.
They come back year after year. And bees, Arctic flowers and bees, there are bees up there. When I saw a bee in Nunavut and near Pond Inlet, what?
Amazing.
Of course there are bees. There are flowers. But it makes sense in retrospect. Like, I wasn't thinking about it when I was drawing them, but it makes perfect sense that I was drawn to something fragile and beautiful and ephemeral and
Strong.
I'm going to open the floor to questions in just a minute, but I first want to talk a little bit about food, because when you are diagnosed with cancer, nutritionists, oncologists, they will advise some modifications to the diet if you haven't already done that. Way more healthy, way more veg, way more getting rid of sugar, watching inflammation. You've both been vegan, vegetarian. How has diet changed for you since your diagnosis? And what role do you think food plays in staying well or being well?
It's such a huge role that it plays in our lives, especially for women. There was a girl in my chemo team, because we all went at the same time, call it a team, and she was bulimic. She was just very, very enmeshed in her bulimia. And she was mortified when she had to eat anything, because she was getting sick from her treatment. And she would really count her calories during her different stages of the month, because, now it's changed. People can get treatment on a weekly basis. When I was doing my treatment, it was every 3 weeks, always, for everybody almost. And she would count her calories and everything, and it was amazing, because, she was a bulimic girl who was diagnosed with breast cancer, but she was still a bulimic, and no one allowed her that. She eventually sought treatment for that and is thriving today. But, it was remarkable. When I went into my treatment, I was a raw food vegan. I had been for many, many years. And all that really meant was I just didn't like mixing my foods, and I traveled too much. So I'd eat 3 apples as a meal, or 6 zucchinis, or 2 bananas, That was for years and years. And then when I was in chemotherapy, all I wanted was rice bowls. All I wanted was brown rice. All I wanted was, these vegan chocolate chip cookies that we ate. That's all I wanted. Nothing tasted right. To this day, I can't eat saffron. Go figure. But all I wanted to do was cook, and I cooked curries, and I love the smells. And but it was interesting. Food played a big part. I tried to do antioxidant healthy smoothies. I don't know how women who are economically compromised could possibly eat healthy during treatment. It's not possible. It is not possible at all to eat organic food. Never mind eat raw food organic when you're not a wealthy person, really and truly. So finding a balance, I think, is important, but I think it's very difficult. And, you know, I fight with dietitians all the time. I love it. Give them my phone number. Love it. And a lot of the information that they sometimes give to patients isn't always the best for that individual. You know, it's just all interesting. Food is a huge part of it.
How about you, Teva? Nutrition, food?
You know, it's interesting. I was raised vegetarian, and I've always had a pretty healthy diet. Like when I had a meeting with a dietitian to, you know, when I first got sick, I cleaned out what was left to clean out in terms of sugar, junk food, whatever. I just was like, I don't want it. But I actually had an appointment with a dietitian because I was trying to gain weight, and she looked at my diet and she's like, "Your diet's great." It's like, thanks a lot. When I first got sick, I stopped eating dairy because I had this intense fear of hormones. And I eventually was losing so much weight that my palliative oncologist got me to start eating some Greek yogurt again and a little bit of dairy. So I'm not quite vegan anymore, which has been it's a bit of a game in my head, a push-pull back and forth. But my relationship with food has changed dramatically because of medication. Like I'm on a clinical trial and I can't eat or drink within an hour, like anything, even water within an hour on either side of taking my medication. And so I have this constant awareness of, have I eaten enough? When do I eat? Should I eat more? Oh no, I can't eat. Oh no, I ate, now I have to wait another hour before I can have my medication. And it's just this constant awareness, where before I was just very joyous about food. I love food. And I still have joy in food. I love cooking. I love eating beautiful food. I'm lucky that I'm in a socioeconomic position where I can. But it's really put a little bit of a haze over my joy in food, because it's so tied to what's going on in my stomach. I can't digest a lot of raw food anymore. I have to eat cooked vegetables. It's an ongoing struggle.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting you mentioned the economic part of it. The cost and the time to eat healthy has never been, especially when you were being told that it can be life and death, right? To eat this way, to really keep an eye on what you're consuming. That for those who are not in that position, it just really is loud and clear that you know, how they do it is of concern. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to add a note. To be honest, though, when you're stage 4, no one tells you what to eat. They tell you eat what you want. If you like cookies, eat cookies. If you like ice cream, eat ice cream. If you like wine, drink wine. Live.
Yeah.
So no one tells you to eat healthy when you're stage 4.
Okay. Oh, now I want to. Where are the microphones, Sean? Are they? I'm walking around. Oh, you're walking around. Okay, so if you have a question, we'll get you the microphone. Go ahead and just let us know your name and your question.
My name is Maria, and I'm probably not unusual in that I know more than one person who's been stricken by cancer, close, far. You all talked about conversations. Small talk, and I've often struggled with that myself, with people who are very close to me and people who are less close. I want to honor the elephant in the room, but I don't necessarily want to be, this is all we talk about. You're still a person and you still read gossip mags or whatever it is you do. And so I wondered if you could speak to that. If you could give advice, please give me advice. What would be useful for small talk?
That is a great question. Who wants to start?
You know, I'd like to jump in and say, I generally would rather not talk about cancer. I would generally rather talk about exactly that, what I am and have always been interested in, whether it's culture or art or what's going on in your life. Like, I want to hear from my friends. I want to hear them complain. Like, a lot of people start to complain and then they stop and say, oh, with everything you're going through.
That's right.
And I want to have real relationships with people where, you know, yes, acknowledge, but don't dwell. That's my take personally.
Yeah, that's great. Biff, how about you?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question because as Canadians, we're very polite people. We are, and even I do it myself because we don't want to bother our neighbor. We don't. So say, for example, if I know the lady in 1203 is going through something, you know, I think I want to take her a pie. I do, but I don't want to bother her. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I wrote a card. I want to slip it under her door because I don't want to knock in it. But I don't do it because I really don't want to make her feel funny. I don't want to embarrass her that I know and she didn't tell me, the lady down the hall did. So I think that my take on it is to knock on the door. Knock on the door. Yeah. People isolate, families isolate because they also don't want to make you feel awkward. So, and that's it's a great thing, I think, about our society, but at the same time, it really isolates families a lot. So, have a big mouth, go, knock on the door, make a pie. If they don't want to talk about cancer, talk about laundry detergent, talk about anything else, anything.
Just show
that
up.
is great. Just show up. Just be
That's
there.
right.
And you don't have to talk about cancer. And I think these guys are right. In fact, don't talk about cancer. Just be normal. I mean, as normal as you can be. I had a great friend who just every couple of days she'd send me a photo of her dog or the sunrise or didn't mention cancer really at all, other than at a few key moments. And I love that so much. She was just there and there and there and there. And that means the world, I think. But don't be afraid to step in, to dive in. Great question. Yes.
Hi, my name's Simone. It's the first time at a writers' festival, and
Hey,
it's really
all right.
enjoyable.
Congratulations.
Okay, so I'm not going to take the mic for half an hour, but I just want to say a couple things. I could say a million things. I feel like I could almost sit up there with you ladies, because I was diagnosed with breast cancer in November 2013.
Wow.
At the age of 40, with 2 young kids, which a lot of women here probably have children or don't or whatever, it doesn't matter, or don't have children, worrying about getting pregnant, etc. So I followed you, and I'm just seeing you for the first time, but I wrote a blog with what I dealt with breast cancer. And I find it fascinating. I love the fact that you're like, don't talk about my cancer, or talk about it, or bypass, like all that stuff. Everybody has different opinions and everything, and it's wonderful. But the thing for me is what makes me, I don't think unique or whatever, I'm not going to say that, but that my husband, when my son was 2 months old, my daughter was 2 years old, was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I lived through cancer and treatments and et cetera with him. And then fast forward 6 years, I lived through it. So we're a young family and we've both gone through it. Anyways, I'm not saying all that to make everyone sad, but just to say that I think your books are amazing. I think the conversation needs to happen. I think the way that you guys are saying it is really important. Not just the normal eat your kale and that really pisses me off.
Yeah, kale did me no good, I'm telling you. Ate it for years.
And so I don't really have a question. I just want to say I love
Thanks,
you
Simone.
guys. I think you're amazing, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Simone.
You are
awesome.
Simone.
That is
You're
great.
amazing.
That is so good to hear. 2013, you're doing well. You look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, over here, yeah. Great. Hello. Hi, good to see you. Here's the microphone coming.
Sorry. I have a question. You're both writers. I'm also a survivor recently. And I'm really struggling with, and there's a lot of media around the language of cancer. So, somebody battled cancer and won or lost. And I'm a survivor. And there's sort of like war analogy that goes along with it that I'm really uncomfortable with. And so I'm looking for you guys if you have some creative ways that you talk about cancer in a more positive light.
That's a good question, too. I don't know the answer yet. What have you guys come up with?
You know, talking about cancer in a positive light is a tricky turn of phrase. I also am not a fan of the battle metaphor, and that's partly for me because, you know, a battle, like, it's so much energy, and for me, I'm in it for the long haul, and so I think we have to learn to live with this, have to be able to breathe, you know, have the energy for that. I'm kind of not answering your question, except to say that I also don't like the battle metaphor. It's a disease. It's a disease that is incredibly widespread. It touches all of us. It's not a war, it's too intimate for that, right? Like, it's very personal. And I think to that end, even if I had a phrase that worked for me, which I don't, I'm not sure that it would work for you. Do you know?
I think that's exactly the point. I volunteer with a couple of different groups in Vancouver, all ages, all demographics, all backgrounds. And some of the patients, and it's all breast cancer ladies, some of the patients, like you, really don't appreciate that language. They don't like that, I guess, that pressure being put on them. They don't want to, because in a way it's inclusive because it's a tradition now. You know, you do the pink ribbon run for the cure. Everyone there is a survivor. You get a survivor shirt. It's different. You know, so a lot of women don't like it. When I was still in my treatment, I was determined not to self-identify as a breast cancer patient. That wasn't my identity. It was not my identity. And now, of course, you know, I'm a grown woman, because I always say breast cancer turned me into a woman. Now, you know, I'm very relaxed about it, and I do understand that many people don't like battle, the war on cancer. I went through the battle, she battled it. A lot of people don't, and I work with a lot of women who really, that's important to them, to include that, because they do feel like they went through a war, and their families went through a war while they were in treatment, and that is also something that's very important to them. So I think that it's okay if you don't really like the statements. I already had a survivor tattoo on my arm. You know, when I was in my first chemo, the nurse said, "What's this?" Oh, it's your second. I was like, no, something else. Give her a wink, you know. But I mean, a lot of people really embrace the word because they do feel very, very empowered by the fight. And it was a fight, and it is a fight. You know, to find another word for it is actually a really fun task. You know, because and it might change for you. It might change 2 years from now. You might go, you know what, in the neck. I can say that. You might. And then go with what you feel.
If I could add something, and it's probably not applicable to everybody either, but in the metastatic community, there are a lot of women who use the word thriver instead. And maybe that's a way to feel more positive. Yeah, thriver.
Thriver.
I like that word.
Who else has a question? Here's one right over here. Great. And if you could stand and tell us your name and your question.
I feel like I should introduce myself like it's an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
Stage 3 lymphoma, 6 months remission.
Wow.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
I guess it's partly a comment on the thing I found unsettling, I guess, was going out in public with my cancer head. And you get a lot of attention, and sometimes it's that kid looking at you like this. Multiple times I was sort of approached randomly in the at Loblaws. I don't know what it's about Loblaws, but one woman barreled up and gave me a hug, and another man followed me out to the car with my groceries, telling me the story about his wife and her cancer, and she had passed away.
No.
Once we were out for dinner, and when I went up to go to the restroom, and someone followed me because they wanted to talk about cancer. And in some ways it's lovely and it's wonderful, and in other ways it's just not what you want to be doing right then, or it's exhausting. And then as I got better and my hair grew back, I forgot that people can't tell by looking at me that this has been my life for the last year. And it came to the point where an acquaintance, had a relative with cancer, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give away all my cancer hats. And I couldn't. I found I was attached to them in some maybe screwed up kind of way. I gave away the ones I didn't wear very much, but like my special ones I kept. My Elizabeth Taylor, still in my closet. And I just wondered, how do you deal with that sort of being public and then not being public, and incorporating that into your history? Or maybe that's just...
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
It is a good question.
Biff, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Well, one thing, I stopped reading at a certain part in my chapter called Year of the Tit. I like saying it, so I'm going to just keep saying it. But when I finally did go and meet with the surgeon, obviously, through all that pathology, they found out, yeah, you got tit cancer. Yeah, great, right on. So I met with the surgeon, and she was a runner. She wore running shoes in the surgery. I never forget it. I was like, that's all I concentrated on was her expensive running sneakers. And she looked at me and she said, Beth, you have breast cancer. And then looked at my husband. I used to spit whenever I said that. Well, I won't do it right now. Anyway, and then looked at my husband and said, your wife will lose her hair. I remember going, well, now that's very interesting. That's very interesting that is the first thing that this lovely person, this surgeon, said. Why would that be? Well, that would probably be because that's the number one question that she's been asked in her career. Will I lose my hair? And I thought that was remarkable, and I thought, this is great shit right here. I think this is really interesting. And I thought, I'm going to see how that goes and see how it feels. I never thought I'd wear a wig. Punk rock, I ain't wearing a wig. Well, no, I had to wear a wig because I was freezing most of the time. None of my baseball hats fit. And plus I was, out the door at the grocery store as Biff Naked Bald, not as Beth the patient. So it was like a weird state of being. So I got a blonde wig because then I would have anonymity. Yeah, not a chance. Not a chance. They were like, oh, Biff, are you doing burlesque now? No. Not. But I kept all my wigs. But I do give them away. If I meet someone who needs a wig, I do give them away. I bought the cheap ones at the Bay. The Bay has the best wigs, by the way. Don't be fooled. Don't buy those $1,200 wigs. That is no, the Bay. The Bay.
Teva, how about you? In terms of identity and being, the cancer lady, all of us don't want to be forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that played a lot into how long it took me to tell people that I had cancer. And I think it might have been different if I had been at an earlier stage of diagnosis. But because I knew that this was going to be my life for the rest of my life, I was really reticent to be identified and to step into that space. It took me almost not quite a year, but many months. I think it was my birthday, just after my birthday the following year, so like 8 or 9 months until I told anybody beyond my immediate friends and family that I had cancer. And it's different for me because, my hair's not falling out. It won't until I'm at a later stage. We start with the milder treatments, and quite possibly I'll be through many chemos before my hair falls out because they just don't hit you as hard when they can't eliminate the cancer. So visually, I don't get that. Like, I don't have people coming up to me. Nobody's offering me their seat on the subway. It's, no matter how I feel, I look pretty much like a healthy woman pushing 40, which I am, except that I'm not healthy. And so I have this dichotomy where like I don't want to talk about it all the time, and I don't want to always be occupying the space of like an advocate, but I also, and I don't really want special treatment, but like, I'd like to sometimes feel like I get it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And once you start, and women I know who have had only radiation, for example, people do not treat them the same way as they do sympathizing and empathizing with a patient that's had full chemotherapy and lost their hair as a result. So you can have someone who is completely, feeling quite terrible and incredibly sick, that they go, oh, but it's not real treatment. It's not real cancer if you don't, and it's very difficult. And you probably notice that as you get well and your hair grows back, people are like, oh, you must be feeling better, even if you're not. And it would be very hard not to take that personally.
Yeah, no, people are constantly saying to me, oh, but you look so great.
Yeah.
You must be better.
That's right.
But no, I'm worse. Thank you very much.
I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I know you want to get copies of books and get them signed and stuff. I have just one quick last thing for each of you. Teva, you mentioned you are turning 40 this year. I know you have a big trip planned this summer. Just quickly tell us about that.
Yeah, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to see giraffes in the wild, and my husband and I are going to South Africa in July.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
All the other animals too. I'm also excited about penguins and lions and all of them. But giraffes.
Very fun.
Awesome. And Biff, you are newly engaged, and what else are you working on? Good things. Tell us about that.
I know. I got engaged last May, and I used to always joke and say, always a bride, never a bridesmaid. and then I had to rein that in. You know, I think it's funny, but then I went, oh, I guess that's not very sensitive. But you know, the truth is that he's the man of my dreams. And the thing about Snake, of course, the thing about Snake is that I learned so much from him because he is a very pragmatic individual. He's from Cranbrook, British Columbia, and he just says, you know what? And he thinks about it and he goes, sweetheart, there's someone for everyone. And he was single for a long time, and I had gone through, after cancer, I went through the real cancer, which is called divorce court, but I digress. And we'd both been single for quite a while, and I really resigned myself to not finding anybody who would understand hot flashes and all that great stuff going on. And he told me, there's someone for everyone, and that gave me more hope for the world than anything else ever did. And I think he's right. So don't give up. I'm getting married in July, and thank you. I know. And this time it's really, really real. This is it. This is really, really real. This is it. He's the one.
He's the one.
I know.
Oh, you too. I have to say, I've been doing Writers Fest for 12 or 13 years, and this is really one of my favorite conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
You are amazing.
You are.
You are.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Aw.